For that, I'd like to call on the moderators, Dr. Dheeraj Khurana, who is the professor and in charge of the stroke program at PGI Chandigarh, and Dr. Salil Uppal, who is the senior consultant at Uppal Neuro Hospital at Amritsar, Punjab. And I'd like to call upon Dr. Ishita Desai, who is a senior resident at the Department of Neurology at AIIMS Rishikesh, to discuss the case.
So the case will be presented, would be projected by somebody?
Yeah, the case will be presented by Ishita, and you shall be moderating the case step by step with specific questions and interrogating the case in a scientific perspective. So that's it.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, respected teachers and my colleagues. Should I start, sir?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. I would like to, first of all, thank the entire team of Stroke Summer School 2021 for providing me this opportunity. Without any further ado, let's begin with the presentation. We have a 25-year-old right-handed lady, a school teacher by profession, resident of Uttar Pradesh, presented to our emergency department on 17th of February 2021 with chief complaint of fever with sore throat of 7 days duration. It was low grade initially, and it was associated with feeling of burning sensation in the throat. And it was followed by complaint of headache with projectile vomiting since last 3 days. The headache was located in the left temporal region. It was high, severe in intensity with a VAS score of 9/10, throbbing in nature, persisting throughout the day with the projectile vomiting, without any downward posture variation, and it was followed by complaint of right focal seizure with impaired awareness, which was followed by right-sided complete hemiplegia with inability to speak of 3 days duration. Patient was not having any history of skin rashes, chronic cough, anorexia, weight loss, diplopia, blurring of vision, no any recent contact with COVID-19 patient or recent vaccination or head injury. Regarding her past history, she was having 3 years history of recurrent migraine-like headache episodes, which were again involving the left hemicranium, and they were throbbing in nature with associated nausea, vomiting, photophobia, phonophobia with a duration of around 1 to 3 days, and occurring at a frequency of 2 to 3 episodes in a month, for which she would receive on and off over-the-counter analgesic medications without any chronic usage of albuterol. There was no any past history of vascular risk factors like hypertension, diabetes, thyroid disorder, prior cardiovascular disorders, any history of epilepsy, stroke, or history suggestive of connective tissue disorders. There was no any prior history of chronic medications, including ossipals. She had no history of recurrent blood transfusion or any past malignancy. Her obstetrics and gynec history was not eventful. She was having regular menstrual cycle, and she was a mother of 2 children. Her last delivery was 3 years back. There was no prior history of spontaneous abortion, stillbirth, or premature delivery. Regarding her family history, her parents were having vascular risk factors in the form of history of hypertension, diabetes, and coronary artery disease. But there was no family history of any psychiatric disorder, hearing loss, young strokes, young death, migraine, or other primary headaches. So on the basis of this history and prior medical history, which structures are likely to involve and where can be localized, and what should be the etiologies? I would like to localize each and every symptom one by one. First of all, the patient was having 7 days history of fever with sore throat. There can be any feature of any systemic involvement due to any infective or non-infective inflammatory pathology. Second complaint was headache with projectile vomiting, which may be because of any raised intracranial pressure or some inflammation of intracranial pain-sensitive structures leading to such symptoms. Third complaint was 3 days duration of seizure, which was right focal motor with impaired awareness. So that can be localized to left frontal cortical or subcortical circuitries. And the last symptom was sudden onset right-sided complete hemiplegia with inability to speak. So it can be either any post-ictal phenomenon towards pulse, or it can be a vascular pathology leading to subcortical structure involvement, more likely as compared to cortical, because it was a complete hemiplegia affecting her upper lower limb as well as face altogether. Regarding the possible etiologies on the basis of her
Okay,
history,
can we just go back to the history?
so
So you said the headaches seem to be raised ICP. Are there more features? And with the previous history of migraine which the patient had, could it just be a migrainous attack? I know projectile vomiting was there, but would you have more features to describe raised ICP versus a migrainous attack? Can you differentiate the two based on history?
Um, sir, on the basis of history, it's difficult to comment on that. Like it can be an episode of migrainous headache, but in the background of fever and with the evidence with the history of projectile vomiting, even though she didn't her relatives didn't tell about the evidence of any diplopia or blurring of vision or photophobia, because
Early
patient.
morning headaches, were they early morning or was the headache relieved with vomiting, something of that sort?
So initial headaches used to be relieved by that, but this headache persisted since last 3 days. And when patient presented to us, she was alter conscious, so we had to rely on the whatsoever history given by
All
the
right.
Any
Patient was in
postural
altered
headache?
sensorium.
Sir.
Any postural headache?
No, sir. There was no postural variation as per the relatives.
Prior history of TVOs, did they give history of TVOs before the patient had any altered sensorium?
No, sir. There was no prior history of transient visual obscurations. The only headaches
Okay.
they did that were matching the criteria of migraine.
Okay, okay. So go ahead.
So on the basis of the history and the past history, I put forward the following possible etiologies. First of all, a young lady with a history of fever, headache, vomiting, followed by seizure, and then hemiparesis. I would like to keep the possibility of infective or vascular event first. Amongst the infection, are there any viral illness, and as in the current era, maybe COVID-19 illness or some tropical illness like dengue, or some intracranial space occupying lesions like neurocystic sarcosis or fungal or tuberculomas. Second possibility can be vascular in the form of cortical venous sinus thrombosis, more likely as compared to the arterial involvement. That can be possible if the patient is having some cardiac pathologies like valvular heart disease with subacute bacterial endocarditis, leading to this embolic event preceded by fever. Third possibility can be a migraine associated vascular phenomenon, but still less likely because the raised acidity features were there. Then I also kept the possibility of an inflammatory pathology because she was a young female. So any first event due to some intracranial vasculitis, either primary or secondary, even though patient was not having any prior history suggestive of any connective tissue disorders. The fourth one would be any hematological disorders like APLA. Although patient was not having prior history of any abortions or bleeding or prior ischemic events like stroke or myocardial infarction. And lastly, any intracranial space occupying lesion like neoplastic with secondary hemorrhage, but it was kept very low down.
So can we just exclude some of these step by step? The first thing is patient had a fever. With the
Sure.
fever, which all possibilities are almost practically ruled out. The fever and sore throat followed by features of raised ICP happening over a period of 3 days, and then altered sensorium and a seizure. Do you think metastasis presents like this? There's no with fevers.
That's why I kept it very low down, and it
Right.
can
So
be
we rule it out. Number two, can vasculitis present for the first time like this?
no, sir,
If I
it is-
talk of primary CNS vasculitis, is this the manifestation? Fever like an encephalopathy?
no, sir, no. Sir. So this
Unusual.
can be-
Systemic like SLE and RA, does it present like this? Again, very unusual without systemic features. Again, ruled out. What about vascular? The first thing when you get of a cardioembolic or a migrainous stroke, Let's come back to a migraine associated stroke. Can a migraine associated specific subtype of stroke, which you didn't keep a possibility, could have presented like this? Fever being a odd part. You've had headaches, altered sensorium, headaches in the past. Can something present like this, which you haven't considered in the possibilities?
So with migraine, association of posterior reversible encephalopathy or like RCVS or even strokes like ischemic, vascular insufficiencies are common. So that could be the possibility, but the fever was the odd thing.
No. That's what I'm saying. Something in the background of migraine, RCVS is not associated with migraines in the past. RCVS happens one fine day, maybe headaches not there, patients taken some overdose of some drug, high blood pressure, and associated drugs. RCVS is not a pure diagnosis; it's an association usually with a number of things. Talk of a disorder which has the constellation of symptoms like migraine without aura, female predomination, female, although pregnancies, let me point out, pregnancies were uneventful. Had pregnancies been eventful in certain other ways, can you think of another possibility?
So the venous sinus thrombosis, like
No, venous sinus thrombosis. What about CADASIL? Do you think CADASIL can be a possibility?
so that is yeah, can be a possibility.
What goes in favor of CADASIL and what goes against CADASIL?
Headache, migraine like headache, young female can be a possibility, but no prior family history and the fever.
Can the encephalopathy which the patient has or the seizure which the patient had goes in favor of CADASIL?
No, sir. It's a more sort of a subcortical phenomenon. So here,
no, that's exactly what probably needs to be realized. CADASIL can present with encephalopathies and seizures. That's known as a CADASIL encephalopathy. That comes with events like this. They may just present as a first time with a CADASIL encephalopathy, and all you may get is a CADASIL encephalopathy. Any case, from the infective, let's go to the infections. Viral agreed since the time going on. It's Feb 21. The patient came, and COVID-19 stays a good possibility. You've not kept pneumococcal or acute meningitis. The patient had headaches.
Yes.
And encephalopathy. Why not a pneumococcal meningitis or a pyogenic meningitis?
So fever was of low grade and it subsided within 2 to 3 days. And then the signs of ICT.
But there is a short history of fever.
So it should have been.
Think about it.
Yeah. Yes, you should. Why exclude it out? You're anyways doing a CSF. You're going to do a CSF and you're going to look at cells. First possibility, and you know that fulminant infective meningitis or meningoencephalitis can be like this. It goes up, pneumococcal creates an abscess. This is all you're going to get. Don't miss it. One is an abscess. What about endocarditis?
Sir.
You didn't talk of an endocarditis. This is so characteristic of an endocarditis, what you're trying. Fever, encephalopathy, seizures, talk of infective or subacute.
Sir, regarding that cardioembolic, even during that time, I mentioned that the possibility of infective endocarditis in the prior valvular heart disease. That's why
you should. Cardioembolic is, for practical purposes, atrial fibrillation for me. When you talk of cardioembolic, it's AF or cardiac arrest. You need to mention infective endocarditis as a possibility, and that comes in the infective group, not in the vascular group.
Okay, yes.
Right. So that reasoning doesn't work. So in infective, you should have kept endocarditis as a very strong possibility, I would say.
Any thought process for the abscess?
So that's what, like pyogenic meningitis or meningoencephalitis with abscess should have been kept. It's a possibility.
Again, neurocystic sarcosis, is it a very strong possibility? You've kept it pretty high up with fever, headaches. I know it's common in our country. Patient never had a history of seizures. Amongst the infection, I would have kept infective pyogenic as a stronger possibility than neurocystic sarcosis. Fungal, maybe, but that's all. Tuberculosis lost fine. And neurocystic sarcosis should have come after tuberculosis. Okay, next. Let's go further.
When she presented to emergency department, she was drowsy, but she was arousable by verbal command and she was mute. Her GCS was E2M5 her vitals were pretty normal. She was afebrile and she was having 94 beats per minute pulse rate which were regular. Blood pressure was bit toward the higher side with 136 by 80 millimeter of mercury. And she was averagely built. All peripheral pulses were palpable. There was no pallor, cyanosis, keratodermy, lymphadenopathy, rash, petechiae, or any neurocutaneous markers. Her systemic examination was normal, and there were no evidence of any loud heart sounds or murmurs or capitations or organ injury. Regarding her central nervous system examination, the speech was more sort of global aphasic, right? She was having right human facial palsy and she was having gaze preference to the left side. And her pupils were equal, symmetrical with normal fundus. There was no evidence of papilloedema. She was having grade 1 spasticity with 0/5 power in her right upper and lower limb with no paucity over the left side. And the hyperreflexia was present over her right half of the body with extensor plantar. There was no neck stiffness. Her back and spine was normal and her presenting an IHS score was 22. So if we summarize after the examination, we had a 25-year-old right-handed lady who presented with 1 week history of headache, projectile fever, headache, projectile vomiting, followed by sudden onset right-sided hemiparesis, with global aphasia, preceded by an episode of right focal seizure, with impaired awareness, with a background of 3 years history of migraine without aura, without any obvious vascular risk factors or chronic drug intake or features of connective tissue disorders.
Okay.
So,
So after the discussion and the summary, after the examination, do your possibilities change?
So regarding infection, I couldn't find any evidence neither in the peripheral systemic examination nor in the central nervous examination. I couldn't find any evidence of this neck stiffness or the meningitis. So
This patient was evaluated in the emergency. These are the emergency findings or the ward findings? These are immediate findings, right? In the emergency.
Yes.
Okay. Fine.
It was attended by neurology resident, but it was an emergency findings.
So you would not still like to keep an infective etiology like pyogenic meningitis or meningitis?
So I couldn't find those signs of meningeal irritation, and patient was afebrile.
But you still have fever. In your summary, the fever is there. Headache is there. Vomiting is there.
Fever, I mentioned that it lasted only for first 3 days. Then it got subsided, and she presented on day 7th.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead. I would still keep that possibility in the back of my mind, and
Yes.
also the endocarditis. Although you didn't have cardiac findings.
I would like to keep that possibility and would like to investigate further also for that.
Because if you will keep the possibility, then only you will plan CSF in this patient.
Yes, we have kept that possibility.
Yeah.
So we further went ahead with the first imaging, which was non-contrast axial CT scan of the brain. It showed a large homogeneous hyperdense lesion involving left putamen and with subtle perilesional hypodense area, suggestive of more likely intracerebral hemorrhage without any larger mass effect on midbrain shifts.
So what thought came to your mind when you saw the scan?
Sir, first of all, the area of the bleed in a young lady. We kept 3 to 4 possibilities at the top. First, I wanted to keep the possibility of intracortical venous sinus thrombosis or hypertensive bleed. But even though patient was not having any prior history or any arteriovenous malformation, an infection was definitely needs to be ruled out.
You said CVST is still a possibility with this CT?
Sir, it is odd because the area is more following the arterial territory. but still,
Yeah, so that is practically
Hmm.
ruled out. CVST is ruled out with this scan.
so the arterial territory was there. So, okay, so
Hmm.
like arterial vas malformations or
Yes. Or an
Yes.
ICH due to various causes and vasculopathies. I would keep a
Hmm.
AVM or a vasculopathy. Whatever the cause of the vasculopathy, let's look for it further. This looks like a vasculopathy in a young patient or a primary ICH, but you said the blood pressure was normal, right?
and no prior history of that.
Okay.
Afterwards, we did the further
And
investigation.
AVM, talking of an AVM, is this a very common site for an AVM bleed?
So the cortical areas are more common as compared to
Yes.
the
Exactly. So AVMs, either it's intraventricular bleeds or cortical subcortical bleeds. This is again so well circumscribed right
Yes.
into the putamen.
It was unusual. So, like it was
Yeah,
not
this
any particular.
remind this takes your mind to very few possibilities. Do you have any possibilities in your mind right now before we look at the angiogram?
So besides that, another possibility of lower down possibility of like moya like illness, I would like to keep.
Yeah. What are the Moyamoya like
Exactly.
illnesses you know of?
So, like it can be secondary to the systemic disorders like sickle cell anemia or hyperthyroidism or neurofibromatosis, or it can be a primary moya disease.
Can
In
CADASIL present like this? Can CADASIL present like this? I know I'm talking about CADASIL quite fervently, but there's a reason I'm asking. There's a history of migraine in the past, significant, and you've presented for the first time with the bleed. Can CADASIL present like this?
so those
Basically,
are
just tell which diseases which mimic like moya moya. In the like you see over here, other possibilities which are like moya moya.
Sir, any thrombophilic disorders like hypercoagulable states, protein CS deficiency, or prothrombin deficiency can be there, but Padasil, I don't think it will present like this. It will be more sort of infarct like uh, condition involving anterior temporal lobe or like frontal or right,
Yeah.
like regions. So,
Rarely bleeds can happen. It's well reported.
Yeah.
And this is a typical site of a CADASIL bleed. Go ahead.
So we went for the further investigations in which for ruling out the infections, we did the hemogram. It was pretty normal except mild leukocytosis was there. We did CSF examination also. It was normal, not showing
Ishita,
any.
just mention fast what your positive findings are in this, and then you can proceed faster. Okay.
Yep.
So sir,
Just give us the
CSF
positive findings.
including the so, like all the panels, including infective pathology, homocysteine, everything returned normal, and metabolic profile was also normal. 2D echo didn't show any evidence of like valvular or congenital heart disease. So now, after all these examinations and investigations, what could be the differentials? After that, I would like to keep the vascular pathology at the top, then hematological, inflammatory, and finally genetic, like Moebius. So we went for the
CVST should not be a possibility, like I mentioned.
But again, you are CVST.
Yeah, because okay, she
Yeah.
must have made the slides earlier, but CVST with this kind of a bleed is totally unlikely. Go ahead.
we went for the MR venogram, which was normal. Final possibilities were the structural etiology, either AV malformation or Moebius disease, or first episode of hypertensive intracranial hemorrhage, some vasculitis or APLA were kept. And we investigated further. For that, we went for the MR angiogram.
Ishita, can I ask you a question on with permission from Dheeraj?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to ask you that when you have a young lady with this 3 years history of headaches, no risk factors, and now comes to you with bleed, can you go back to your slide of differentials? So would you like to keep a structural etiology top on the list, or you would like to bring on inflammatory vasculopathy above this? Considering this long-standing history of headaches, I'm of course just asking you. I'm just trying to play around and discuss because we have not seen any MR to support that evidences below Maybe are you going to show the MRI and then discuss these, or
Yes, there are MRI angiography and other scans.
do you have an MR brain as well, or just a CT and MRA?
So angiograms are there. I don't.
Okay, fine. Just go ahead.
So we went for the MR angiogram, which on the left side it is an axial section 3D image of TOF MR angiography showing absence of flow into the left MCA territory. And in the sagittal section, we can see multiple small collateral vessels surrounding the area of cutoff. In this led us to the possibility of myoma. For that, we went for digital subtraction angiography, which this is a DSA scan of the patient, the AP view of the left internal carotid artery showing the narrowing of the supraclinoid process part of the internal carotid artery with multiple collateral vessels giving a puff of smoke appearance. And this is the AP view of the left right vertebral artery showing the multiple PCA collaterals feeding the MCA territory. So after that carotid intracranial angiography, we kept the possibility of moya-moya-like illness leading to intracerebral hemorrhage. So we tried to rule out other diseases which can lead to moya-moya-like illnesses leading to moya-moya syndrome. So in that we did the sickle cell test, APLA and thermophilia profile, everything returned negative. Her vasculitic profile including ANA also returned negative. Ultrasound of abdomen didn't show any evidence of renal artery stenosis. Her carotid Doppler was not showing any evidence of atherosclerosis, and 2D echo was normal. Her thyroid function test was also normal, and she was not having any prior history of head irradiation. So after the ruling of all the secondary possible causes of moya-moya-like illness, we finally reached to the diagnosis of
Ishita, just be a bit louder, please, closer to your mic.
So after above investigations, we finally reached to the diagnosis of moya-moya disease, which because we already ruled out majority of these possible secondaries, and we started her on edema-lowering agents along with the anti-epileptic medications, ecosprin and limb physiotherapy, on which she showed significant clinical improvement. Her sensorium improved, GCS improved to E4, M6, V1, but still she had the Broca's aphasia. Her power of right upper limb and lower limb also improved to 4/5, and NIHS score also improved to 9. The prognosis and surgical treatment options were discussed with the relatives, and she is still in a follow-up with a stable hemodynamic status, and there was no history of any recurrence of stroke in the last 3 months.
How do you take a decision for surgery in a patient of moya-moya if it is a primary moya-moya? What factors come into consideration before you go ahead with surgery or conservative measures? And this presentation of a bleed, how common is it? Is this a more common presentation in an adult?
So moya-moya has bimodal distribution. So in adults, intracerebral hemorrhage or intraventricular hemorrhage, they are more common as compared to ischemic events. Ischemia are commonly seen in the children's. In adults, the common sites of ICH are again the same as that of the hypertensive sites like basal ganglia, thalamus. Besides that, intraventricular hemorrhage can be seen in 30%, and subarachnoid hemorrhage can be there, and less likely cortical bleeds can be there. Even, sir, those patients can have headaches, long-standing headaches, and most common headaches which are commonly found in moya-moya-like illness were mimicking the migraine-like headaches followed by cluster headaches. So there can be possibility the patient can have a migraine-like episodes. Regarding the surgical part, there is no cure for this kind of illness, but we can check for the collaterals by doing the perfusion scan as well as angiography, and on the basis of the profile of the patient, like if the recurrent strokes are happening and there is a high risk of poor collateral support to the brain is there, in that situation we can discuss the available surgical options in which either direct or indirect.
What is the way to know the perfusion status if you see the collaterals or don't see the collaterals, what's an objective way to determine the perfusion or the reserve status of the brain, the vascular reserves? How can we?
Classification is there. The Suzuki Takata classification is available. On that, we can grade the.
No, I'm not talking of the grading of the moema. I'm talking of the vascular reserves. How do you determine the vascular reserve? Like you said, you will look at the collaterals. Is there an objective way to look at the vascular reserves of the brain before you go ahead and decide the surgery? That may give you a kind of measure that there is a high risk of patient going into ischemic or hemorrhagic events.
Ishita, you heard Dr. Vijay Sharma's talk as well. So
I was supposed to say that previous talk. Yeah.
Yeah, if she heard that, then it's
Yeah.
very valid a question.
any role of TCT or any other imaging modality which will help you decide whether these people are at a high risk of stroke due to perfusion?
TCD is a bit tough to do in these, I know, because you will, so many vessels are there, you may not focus on the MCA, but maybe something else, which is,
Let's just be louder a bit.
yeah, TCD may be a bit difficult to do in patients with so many vessels. So any other
Modality.
alternate modality or investigation?
MR
Maybe
perfusion scan or
Okay, that can be done. A SPECT based something on SPECT. You could do a acetazolamide SPECT, right, which gives you the reserves, and that gives you an objective assessment of the reserve and the perfusion of the brain, and you can take a more informed decision about doing a surgery. Now, what kind of surgeries do we do in Moema?
either we can go for direct anastomosis between the superficial temporal artery and middle cerebral artery, or indirect graft can be placed between the artery and these subdural. Or it can be a combined method. So,
And you did show a slide that you said you ruled out a CADASIL. How did you rule out the CADASIL? Did you get a notch 3 gene? Oh, you didn't rule out a CADASIL. Okay, fine. Any other comments? But still, if you had not known the angiographic findings, your possibility sequence should have been different. If you need to, go in an analytical way for this kind of a stroke.
okay, sir.
Salil, any other further questions?
I was talking about CADASIL, sir. What is your opinion about CADASIL in this case?
I would have ruled it out by a notch 3 gene too, because I know with the kind of MCA configuration, it's unlikely, but we should have ruled it out too with a migraine history and a stroke. Hemorrhages can happen in CADASIL too. And then MRI, I would have loved to see the MRI.
Yeah.
I didn't see the MRI in this patient. Was there an MRI done?
Yes, there was 7, sir.
And what did that show apart from the hemorrhage?
So no microbleeds were there, or no any other subcortical white matter involved.
Okay.
Bleed this hematoma was present.
Fine, I think we can.
Dheeraj, Dheeraj and Salil, maybe final last comments, and then we can wind up. And Ishita has done a great job.
Yep, she's done a good job, and she's described the case, reached the final conclusion. So that's very nicely done. About such young stroke patients, I would say, when you have a febrile illness, apart from looking at COVID, one needs to think of other common causes, like especially endocarditis. Never forget that may present for the first time, just like this kind of a stroke. And with a migraine history, like I've been repeatedly talking of CADASIL, that should be thought of. But if the MRI is not showing any other features, then of course it's practically ruled out. Otherwise,
Ishita, can you stop sharing your slide, please, once again?
Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Well done.
Yeah.
Nice case.
So, if with your permission, Dheeraj,